I want to thank TDLR for letting me come, because it's very, very important that the referees and the inspectors are all on the same page. I mean, it can make or break a night. I've been very fortunate. Real quick rundown of my background. Somebody asked me a while ago, when did you start reffing? Well, I was sitting on the front row in another state at a kickboxing match in 1992, and they come and said, hey, come here. The ref didn't show up. Would you start reffing? And so Taka was there, and I started in 1992 and worked my way up through 2001. I think I did the very first MMA show we had in Texas and been doing it ever since. So that'll tell you a little bit about my age that I don't like telling, but it is what it is. But a question got asked to me a long time ago, and it's a question I think everyone needs to ask as an inspector. Are you a professional inspector at a professional event, or are you an inspector at a professional event? And that stuck to me because I was asked that as a referee. They go, define leadership. At an event, what's a leadership? How are you going to lead these people to understand that you're professional and it's influence? You influence them. You walk in there, you carry yourself well. We're all getting along. We're all on the same page. And that starts earlier than the weigh-ins. When we get our assignments, the worst thing that can happen, we're our worst culprit. Oh, man, I'm working with so-and-so. That word will trickle everywhere. I'm excited about every event, whether it's an amateur event, whether it's a UFC event. We treat them all the same, and that's something that's very important to us as referees. That's a couple of things I learned early on. Find the inspectors. Let's introduce ourselves. Let's get to know each other. Let's all get on the same page. You are the referee's eyes, ears. You're our feelings. You take care of us. There's so many things that go in to an event, but what we don't want to have to worry about is the things you have to worry about. Because in the cage, we're going to have to make a split-second decision, and sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. But, we try to always concentrate and make that. So you guys really make, our job a lot easier. I've refereed in Arizona, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Canada, Bahrain. I've got to travel and work with a lot of inspectors. Early on in my career event, there's a gentleman trying to get his hands wrapped. Inspector's nowhere to be found. He goes to the other inspector. He says, hey, can you watch? We got to go. We got to wrap hands. The trainer's all over him. He says, you got to wait on your inspector. The other inspector is in the other dressing room taking pictures with his opponent in a baby gat tank top. Took his shirt off, all chilled, taking all these pictures. They finally find him, get him back over there. They had elected to go ahead and wrap hands because the show had started. They were third fight of the night. He made them cut the wraps off, made them redo. They got one hand wrap done, half a hand wrap done. They had to tape up, go, never got to warm up, went to the ring. Huge controversy, made headline news. The fighter, Donald Cowboy Cerrone, the trainer, Greg Jackson. So professional. Second event that I got to hear about, couldn't find the inspector, couldn't find him. Somebody went outside, trainer went outside. He goes, you're in the beer line. He goes, hey, dude, my girlfriend's 18 years old. I got to buy her and her sister beer. I'll be there here in a minute. Second headline news, So those are two things that I heard in a career, and I thought, oh, wow. And fortunate enough, I'm very privileged in Texas because I think we all really stay pretty heavily on the same page. But that was 2 out-of-state events, so, just really kind of shocked me how they ran things. But both of those deals made the news because Greg Jackson wasn't quiet about it. He said, you got to be kidding me. So those little things we learn about, but things we need to know, starting at the rules meeting. Very important that we know your name. I was guilty of this last weekend, didn't introduce the inspectors, and after it was said and done, I thought, golly, I should introduce the inspectors. Come find us, say, hey, I've got roll call going. I'm so-and-so, this is so-and-so. We're going to be in this dressing room. He's going to be in this dressing room. When you do roll call, instead of us doing it, as referees, I think after you finish the roll call, we always like the inspectors to do the roll call because that familiarizes the fighter with you guys, is you introduce yourself again. I'm so-and-so. I'm in the red dressing room. This is so-and-so. He's in the blue dressing room. These are the guys you had to find because 90% of the time back in the old day, the fighters are always looking for us. Hey, I got to get my rap signed off on. I can't find the inspector, and you want to avoid that. We want to avoid that as much as possible. Secondly, it's real important that you learn the rules. Another state, another thing, get in the cage, kid knocks a guy down, TV fight, knocks him down again, third knockdown, again, the kid's, I mean, he's recovering, he's getting up. The guy knocks him down, turns around, throws his arms in there. Kid tackles him, gains his back, rear naked chokes him, taps him out. He jumps up screaming at me. What are you doing? I knocked him down 3 times. So he goes, the inspector told me there's a 3 knockdown rule. And so it was a bad situation. It was a state up that way. That's all I'm going to say. So be sure that you review the rules, look at the rules, listen when we go in. I always start a rules meeting, and me and Pete, we were talking about a little bit of saying, is there anything you guys don't understand in the 32 TDLR unified rules for mixed martial arts? Is there any rule you don't understand? 90% of the time, you never hear nothing. They'll go, we understand. You have covered yourself right there. Because if you have a decision on a rule, you can come back and say, hey, I called it out in the rules meeting. And then I always finish with saying, okay, well, we're going to go through some of those rules. We're going to talk about these rules. If you're going to give advice on a rule, be sure that we are definitely on the same page. Well, I don't want to get in that situation again. Hey, 3 knockdown rule, that can make us all look really, really bad. So if somebody asks you a question of a rule and you don't know it or you don't understand, it's not a bad thing. Come find whoever your officials are that night and say, hey, this guy's asking about this rule. A lot of it is a language barrier. We have Brazilians over here now. I had that Saturday night in an amateur event. 3 guys had no clue what I was saying, so I took them to the side and we redid it again, made sure both inspectors were there, introduced the inspector to the translator, made sure we were all on the same page, and Vicky was there. I think there was 2 of them that couldn't, but they really couldn't. But we have to communicate that. But if you're going to answer a rule question, be sure we answered it the same way, and we'll all be. But we stress the rules meeting. We want you at the rules meeting. I think it's very important that we're all at the rules meeting on the same time and and so that starts a lot before. And we'll cover all those rules. We'll go through them in detail. If you think we didn't cover something, when we go, hey, anybody got any questions? Hey, lean over to us. And I think the doctor, Dr. Lee hit on the nose. We're probably a little quick to say, I'm not a doctor. I've been asked that question about a cut one night after a UFC. A lady from Fox Sports said, hey, can I talk to you about the Diego Sanchez-Gilbert Melendez fight? And they'll come find you too. They'd already talked to the inspector. We want to talk about the cut. And I go, oh, you're a doctor. And she goes, no, I'm not a doctor. I said, neither am I. Next question. And she said, well, is there anything you want to say? Yes, without a doubt, I had the best seat in the house. Yeah, the best seat in the house. But let's make sure that, if you guys, and that's why I want to kind of rush through this, because I want you to tell me what you guys see in referees and what you wish would happen, and we all communicate. Before a show, we'll sit there, any of these guys I work with, or when they work together, we sit down, hey, do you know this fighter? Do you know these inspectors? What's the crowd like? What's the fight going to be like? What's the venue like? You've been here, I haven't been here, and so we have to really watch that thing. We have some huge events coming that's going to be, they're televised, there's cameras everywhere, people got their phones everywhere, and while we're on that subject, it's professionalism. I don't eat with them. I don't ride with them. I don't talk to them. I don't talk to their mom or dad, their family. They always want to talk to you. Hey, you did my son's fight. You just keep walking. Thank you. We'll talk after the show. After the show, somebody comes up, you got to be polite, but you do it in a polite manner. But those things will come back and haunt you. Hey, I saw the referee sitting there eating. Even though the fighter was 8 tables over, I was eating with him. So you kind of got to really watch those things too, and we remain professional on those deals. Backstage, where you guys could really help us, this sport, if you look plumb back when Texas' first UFC event was UFC 69 in Houston, and you look today, this sport has evolved like you can't imagine. But unfortunately, with that evolution of the sport, people learn how to get away with stuff. There's now a powder gel on the market that John McCarthy called me about. He said there's a powder gel. It's just like baby powder. They put it on. When they sweat, it becomes a slick gel. So therefore, if they're putting powder on, you got to go, hey, I want to see the powder. What's in the powder? He said they run into that deal over in Canada recently at the last, they just put this powder on, it becomes a real slickum. If you see baby oil, if you see any kind of lubricant, that's not like a Vaseline that they've got the lid on, make sure they keep those lids on. We always want to grease at the cage. Those things need to be brought to somebody, whoever the director is that night, their attention, and we need to watch that. If you even suspect it, when we come to check the fighters in, say, hey, man, I want you to check this guy pretty heavy. just lean over to our ear. Doesn't have to be in front of his corner or anything like that. But those pre-fight inspections in the dressing room, you guys, man, you're never going to hurt our feelings by coming up and saying, hey, man, I think this could have happened. I promise you it's a lot better than something happened during the fight on a national TV or a pay-per-view that we have to back up and say, man, we should have caught this. But things like that. So you got to really pay attention. These guys, it's unfortunate everybody wants an edge. And so they're looking for those things. That really shocked me. I hadn't even heard of such. But we got to really watch that on the legs and the body and stuff. The buckets, if you guys could get that, took care of backstage, look and see what they have, no loose ice, and I'm just giving suggestions because you guys do a really good job at that. And we know the rule, it has to be a threaded lid, that we keep that under control. What do they have in that bucket? What's, is it legal? Is it labeled? Is it, because when we get up there and start checking and we're on TV or we're not on TV or we're at an amateur event, somebody says, hey, hold on a minute, and we make them take their bucket out, then it causes a controversy as well. Mouthpiece and cups. Jacob over here even talking about, hey, get to an event the other day, he hits a guy and, he don't have his cup on. So here we go. We got to go back to the dressing room, put the cup on. Those things, if you could just keep reminding. We go over that in the rules meeting. I tell people I was a fighter when I was young. That's the last thing on my mind was my cup or mouthpiece. That's the last thing on my mind. But our trainers always made sure, give me your mouthpiece right now. Where's your cup at right now? Checklist. So if you guys could kind of check for that too as well. Jewelry's a big deal. Tongue rings, we get up there and they got a tongue ring in, things like that. We really had better you guys took care of it before we get to the check-in point. One thing too that's really become an issue, and it happened to us a couple of weeks ago in Oklahoma, is the gloves. Before you leave that dressing room, maybe just take your hand and wipe across the gloves. I'm telling you, we got to a cage, and I'll check the arm, and I've noticed Jacob did, and we go all the way out and hit the glove, and I'm like, man, what is it? And it's grit. I mean, like solid, like dirt. They had put somehow or another, I don't know if he's on the ground warming up, but it was real dirty, which could cause a huge issue for us. But those are a few things that we've noticed, mouthpiece, things like that. And one real important thing that, and don't take this wrong, once you get that fighter to the cage, to the check zone, back up. You take the corners from that point. We're going to take the fighter from that point. But it's getting so crowded at the tech zone that what happens, we raise the arm and the arm hits you, or because you're up there too, so once you get him to us, we'll take him. Because we're going to be the last person to touch him. We're going to make sure he goes to the cage and nobody hugs him, pats him on the back. Here we go again with Vaseline or anything. But once you get him to us, if you will back up and control the corner right then, watch them. And if one of them's Vaseline, we're watching. We're the eyes then. We take over from that point till we get him to the cage. But it gets so congested up there with an inspector, a fighter, cornerman, who's Vaseline, and we're all doing this. Cameras are on top of it. So if we can do that, just kind of stay back. And once we get to that point, then we go in, then you guys go in with them. That's when we get in the cage is when we need your help. We do not have time to watch both fighters sit here jockeying back and forth. We're paying attention to the map. We're looking at things, what's going on in the cage, assessing, getting our head straight. But you have to pay attention to the greasing between rounds. If they're cut men in there, make sure they clean up. Excessive water. What are they giving him to drink, which you've already checked out. And the electrolytes, that puts another deal on y'all's back. Is it electrolyte? What's in this bottle? Is it a sealed bottle? Okay, you mix this up. You kind of got a lot of things to check, and that's happening in every state right now. They're going, some states require it to be sealed. I don't think Texas does. Okay, we do. So when they get the dressing room, if it's not sealed, then you need to go to a supervisor and say, hey, they brought a liquid in here and it's not, because I've seen that 2 weeks ago. Same thing. They come in, they chunk it, said, hey, you want to go get a Gatorade? Go get it. But it's going to have to be sealed. The tabs don't need to be broke. So. But once we get in the cage, if you guys, that's where you could help us, and that's where our communication starts. Another thing, and most of you guys I've seen fight before or been in the cage or been competitive, if you hear that fighter saying, I can't see, I don't want to continue, man, I'm done, I can't feel this, my hand's broke, anything out of the ordinary that's going to, prevent him from protecting himself 100%. When you're walking out, just stop, lean over, tell us, hey, the kid don't want to continue, because I know how it's like to be a cornerman. No, give me one more round. Give me one more round. Man, I promise you this guy's quitting on you, because you don't want your fighter to quit, And so I've been there, I've been told that, so I know how it's like. But at least we know, okay, This kid don't want to be there. Gives us an opportunity to maybe walk by, you ready to go? And if he tells us that, then we stop the fight. But communication and those things, especially listening. If you guys are listening for us, you're, like I said, the eyes and the ears, they do something you don't like, stop and say, hey, man, you know, this happened. I'd rather stop it between rounds than when we go live and something happens out there. But eyes and ears are very, very important for us because you guys, y'all hear a lot more than we do. We're not paying attention to that because I'm looking at him, what are they doing? I'm looking at him, what are they doing? So if we could get you guys to really do that, but communicate to us because it's never a dumb suggestion to come up and say, hey, you know, I think this could have happened. I don't know what's going on, but this is what was said or this is what they were doing. He was rubbing his legs a lot. At least we can figure that out. And then controlling the corner. I was at an event and it was really pretty cool because the inspector came up to me and he said, okay, I know where the security guys are. They're right here behind us. They're going to be sitting here all night. If anything goes south, I got them. We got your back. You know, 10 seconds, get them out of the cage. We're going to have controversial stops, and we're usually right in the middle of it. You know, hey, he didn't tap. Hey, what'd you stop it for? You know, he was okay. People's emotions flare, mine a flare. You know, when my basketball team, when my tech got beat the other day, my emotions flared. You know, I mean, I thought we got cheated, but it didn't. So be sure you guys kind of control that too. But that was always, when that guy told me that, I thought, I never thought of that. When I walk in the venue, I usually see the security people, or I never pay attention. But he goes, hey, I got the security people situated. If we have an issue or we have anything, they got our back. You know, so introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm an inspector tonight, and find those people too. Who knows? I don't think it's happened in Texas to where we got to that point, but it is a good person to know, and that is one person who will always have your back too, being with the state. So, but the 10 seconds, if there's excess water, while they're doing that, tell them, hey, get it cleaned up, get it cleaned up, get it cleaned up. Everybody's buying time. Everybody wants an extra 10-second rest. You know, the heartbeat goes down 10 seconds. You know, hey, let's get this. So make sure we're keeping that under control and make them kind of clean it up. What we don't want to have to do is call time. One of us have to go over there and do that. And we're usually watching that. If somebody slings it, we'll say something too. But answer to Dr. Lee's questions too is, a lot of times what I've noticed as a referee, and I thought he was here, but I think he left, they'll come in without us asking them to come in a lot of time, but they're usually good about standing back observing. And then I tell them, if you need more time, let me know, we'll call time. And I think that's good. If you guys see something too, hey, I think you need to get the doctor to look at this. This kid doesn't want to go on. We can call time, take you guys out of the scenario a little bit and let the doctors come in and assess that. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not going to make that decision. And I'm going to listen to those guys if they say, yes, let's go, or no, we stop. You know, those are things that I really think that help us a ton. And, I mean, inspectors to us, you know, we always are excited to see you guys. Judges, we have a relationship, but I'm in a whole different ballgame. I'm watching something totally different than what they are. I really don't care what the decision is. There's two things, and I've always told these guys, the two main things of a referee, in my opinion, is the safety of the fighter above everything. Nothing even comes close to that, to the safety of the fighter, and number two, that we don't decide the fight. I didn't train for 6 weeks. I'm not making a living doing this. They are. So those are things we're really trying to concentrate on, not the other stuff. Anything, though, other than ordinary things, too, that have come in evolving around is these new spandex shorts. They're made by Spalding. They have rubber on the inside. If you see somebody putting on Under Armour, under thing, just run your hand across there, make sure it's not a sticky rubber. I got gripped up on one of them one night, and you're not getting away. I mean, it's basically like fly paper. It sticks, so they cannot have anything on the inside. That's another new trick that everybody's trying to get away with. They'll pull it up under their trunk, so that's why it's important that you're in the dressing room kind of observing, even when they're getting dressed. You know, they'll pull them up, then when they're coming in the cage, they pull them down, and here you go. Nobody checks. You know, we don't check, or when they get in the cage, they're pulling down. And so just kind of watch those things, you know, and that's why I think it's real good. You go up, you shake their hand, I'm your inspector, and to introduce yourself, and it gives a good respect, too. Those guys appreciate that. They want to know who you are. You know, in MMA, they cannot wear anything on the ankles. So it's better to address it, in the dressing room versus when we get out there and then everybody's arguing and we got to go get one of the head guys to come do it. But no tape, no sleeves, nothing on the ankle. Now, doesn't prevent knee braces without any metal. Just your sleeve for your knee. That's good. Muay Thai is a whole different ball game. They tape everything. So, we'll address those when we get there. But be sure that you guys check backstage because it's going to be 50-50. You're going to get an argument. You're like, hey, man, we do this everywhere. Okay, well, you're not doing it here. So, be sure we take care of it and then go get if it gets to where it escalates a little bit, just go get the department and they can help. And we're addressing that in the rules meeting. We want to get it all up front. And that's why it's kind of important to go through those rules and learn the rules and just kind of know them a little bit. What you don't want to do, and we were at an event that really shocked me, is no headbutting, no eye gouging. That right there triggers a point to the fighter that this guy don't know what he's doing. If you inspect a referee doing that, you probably need to say something. You probably need to let these guys know, because as a referee, you should know the rules. If you don't know the rules, but I had an individual who's he goes, Kerry, does he not know the dang rules? And they had a card, blah, 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 reading it. Couldn't even pronounce half the stuff. Be sure if you're doing that as a referee, and it's a little bit different, but it's always good for an inspector too, know the rules. But I can't stress that enough. I'm not for sure on that, but I'm going to go get the referee, and we're going to talk about it. If we're busy or we're working, hey, when you get to the cage, the referee's going to give you an opportunity to talk. So, and I always do. I tell them, hey, I got all day. You need, what questions do you have? And I think in the rules meeting, a lot of you guys been in my rules meeting, always in that. Is there any question whatsoever about the rules? Because I don't care if we start at midnight. If there's a question, let's talk about it. What's the back of the head? Those things like that you need to learn. That's a huge controversy. What is the back of the head? That back of the head is the crown area with the strip of like electrical tape down to the ear, and it napes out to the neck. But the back of the head ain't if I throw a punch and he turns to block it. Whose fault is that? It's the guy hitting the back of the head. He just has to redirect the next punch. So there's a lot of those things that are good. I would highly suggest that you even if you're just inspecting, go to one of the training seminars. I know a lot of these guys, we go out to California, we go to Herb's, we've been to John McCarthy's, we've been to Mario's. They're all good. Can't say anything bad about them. ABC has those updates. Jump in over on the MMA if you're going to do that and listen to those guys. We try to make it a point to go every year somewhere, and catch up because things change. And open forum, like I'm going to give you a chance here in a minute, that's where we learn. It's experiences you guys have had, experiences we've had, assessing a point. When do you take a point away? How big of a bind you can get in? If you take it away too quick and then you take a point and then this guy can't continue, hey, you've already punished him. So now you can't disqualify him. So you always make sure that this guy's going to be able to continue before you assess the foul and little things like that. So, but going on down, if you guys could watch that stuff too back in the dressing room, the tape, the ankles, and just really being there where they can find you, to where they don't come find us and go, hey, I can't find the inspector. He needs to sign off on my gloves. Watch all that. Make sure that the glove is taped backstage. When they're taping the glove, not only their hands, but the gloves taped. We get up to the tech zone or whatever, and they don't have tape, and then they have to run get tape. So be sure we have all that. Inspect the gloves. Before they put them on, I'm telling you, if you feel of them, just kind of inspect them. If there's any doubt in your mind that something's wrong with that glove, let's stop. Stop right there and say, hey, hold on here a minute. And take that glove up to, these guys, whoever the director is that night, and say, take a look at this. I really don't feel comfortable. It might make them mad. Hey, we got to hurry up and glove up. Guess what? It's not worth what could happen if something's wrong with the glove or they've done something or they've tampered with it. And we're really fortunate in Texas. I think we've done well. But you look at the amount of events, like Greg said, that we're having in Texas, we're second to none. We go heads up with California. We have an event every daggum night, so things are evolving. With that being said, you're going to get those fighters that possibly, a little leery backstage. Hey, man, I'm a little nervous about that. Just communicate that kind of stuff. Our safety, and their safety is what we really want to do. If we do have something happen in the cage, and Dr. Lee didn't address this, it's your job not to let anybody in that cage. And I know Danny brought up a deal. What do we do? If we're kneeling over a fighter, most of the time we're just assessing. I'm not going to administrate a cut. I'm not a cut man, and I'm not going to stick my finger in the orifice or anything like that. If he's convulsing, I just want him to know, hey, I'm right here beside you, trying to talk to him, trying to make sure he can breathe. If we got to turn him over to where they can breathe or anything like that, that is probably as far as we're going to take it. And then we're waiting on the doctor. But we would like your hurry and help of getting the doctor in there. What we don't want to have to do is turn around and go, come on, come on, come on, come on. We want that doctor in there, so clear the path for them. That is the most important. We tell it in the rules meeting, the most important person in this whole venue tonight's the doctor. You yield to the doctor. If you run out of the cage, we need y'all's help too, because a lot of times if they're mad or glad, they come hauling butt out of the cage and run right by the doctor. Help us stop them, because we tell them, hey, when you exit the cage, exit right here and see that man right there, or you're going to find out what it's like to fight for nothing. Because, they'll take off or do anything like that. So be sure you kind of help us control that. But that is probably one of the, if I had to stand up here and say one thing, let's make sure we get the doctor as quick as possible. We got the path clear. Nobody else comes in. They're going to be anxious to get to their fighter. And I tell them in the rules meeting, I always ask every rules meeting, is there an MD in the corner? And 2 times since 1992, I had a guy raise his hand, scared the heck out of me. Then I didn't know how to respond. I said, well, okay, you're not here at this event. You yield to our MD. But it did kind of shock me. He raised his hand. He goes, yes, I'm a medical doctor. And so, but anyway, make sure you locate those guys as well. And I would always explain backstage to the contestants in their corner. Number one, you got a band on, you're the corner, you're responsible. We're going to lean on you to control everybody around here. But here's how the sitting area is. You're going to have 2 seats and a stool, because if not, they're running around, they're looking. He'll inform them, give them a little heads up, because if it's big, small show, whatever, it's confusion because they're nervous, their adrenaline's flowing, and they're making sure their fighters took care. So be sure that you kind of address those things. Hey, the corner's going to be sectioned like this. I'm going to be right behind you. You guys need anything, I'll address, or all the officials will address. No towel rule. You cannot throw that in. Other states are allowing that, so that's why we always stress that, because they'll throw something in, it'll hit us in the head, or we can't see, So be sure you address. Just tell me that we need to stop, and we'll stop. I'm telling you, if we stay together as one team, whether you make a wrong call or I make a wrong call, but we support each other, we're never going to have issues. But where we're going to have issues is if you agree with the fighter. He tells you, hey, man, he stopped it too early. Yeah, he dang sure did. I wouldn't have stopped that fight. But then we got problems. Then it escalates. All I'm asking is we respect you guys. Y'all are our savior. Y'all are our backbone. Y'all are our eyes, ears. We're just in there to do what we do. But if you back us, we're backing you. We work as one team. That's good. But what have you guys seen? Anything for the referees that we can make us better?
Hey, Kerry, would you comment on a couple of things? Taped toes, finger and toenails, and how many seconds are allowed in the cage?
Okay. Man, thank you for bringing that up, because I missed that. No whites on the fingernails, no whites on the toenails, meaning they have to trim them down. We check at the weigh-ins a lot, but if you guys could check if we miss somebody, always when you're looking, that's a checkpoint too. Okay, the toenails look good, fingernails. We have a lot of women fighters, and they spend a lot of money on pedicure and whatever that other deal's called, manicure, yeah. So make sure that, hey, they go abide by the same rule, and that brings securing your hair, rubber band only. Make sure they don't have all these beads, stuff hidden. A lot of these girls, we refereed one the other night that had, what do you call it, where you make it longer and it's fake? Extensions, but it had metal stuck up in there. She secured it with metal. I go, you got to take that out. Bull crap, I spent $250. She canceled. She wouldn't fight. She said, well, I'm done. I'm not fighting. Okay. And sorry, Dan, what was the other question?
Taped toes.
Taped toes, no tape on the ankle, toes, anything below. No tape, period.
Second, how many?
Well, and that differs, I think. A minimum of 2, a maximum of 4 is the way the rule states. In the cage, 1 in, 1 out on 2, 2 in, 1 out on 3 and above, correct? Okay. Yes. The question was, how many can you have in your corner, and does it, differ? Yes, in amateur, we've allowed 2, 1 in, 1 out. And I always tell the guys, and something that you can tell, get creative. Set your stool at the door. There's 2 doors in the cage, so set your stool at the door. Both of you are right there. One of you on the steps, one of you is in the cage. You can both communicate very well. So just set your stool at plus it helps us get them in and out of there. And so 2 to 4, I know the rule states a minimum of 2, which I've seen that change, and a maximum of 4, correct? And then 2, or anything above 3, there's 2 in, 1 out. Even up to 4, you can have 2 in, 2 out, correct? Unless a cut man comes in. But the toenails, fingernails, yes, that's very helpful. Yes, sir.
Hold on.
Just make sure. Then what we do is we run. He said if they had their fingernails or toenails painted, and that goes for guys too. For some reason, it kind of freaks me out a little bit. But guys are painting their toenails and fingernails. Chuck Liddell, we can all thank him for that. I'm just not going to go tell him that, you know. But if you would just take it and run your finger right here, and if it's got a lip over outside the end of your finger, then we need to talk. You know, John sent me a deal, and I couldn't open it. That's what I was trying to do, open it on my phone. It's powder gel, and it looks just like baby powder. So now we got to, I think how I would assess that and how I would check that and how I'm going to check it is if they have looks like baby powder, I'm going to have a wet hand, and I'm going to run my hand across it. Because a lot of guys will say, hey, I'm raw as ever, or girl, you know, this cup's killing me, and I put baby powder on. But he said it's really obvious. It's a powder substance that goes on white, and then it kind of clears up. So you got to just be, that's what's going to be important.
Best way to remove it.
Come get us. And come get the director, because if you got baby oil, and we had this early on, where a guy, you know, we're not Muay Thai, and I'm talking about mixed martial arts, had baby oil and water, sprayed his guy down, and when we checked, we just, you know, like, whoa, it's an indefinite suspension. You know, that's something that the unified world will go nuts on, and I think there's 37, and I heard this at a convention today, 37 indefinite suspensions in the U.S. because of that, baby oil and silicone that shouldn't have happened. They did it between rounds with the spray bottle. So that's always, you know, it doesn't hurt to get a water bottle and spray it on your hand, you know, kind of rub it together just to check it. Say, hey, let me check your water bottle right quick, just so we don't have no issues, no big deal. Spray it, rub your hands together. If it's greasy, if it's slick, you need to bring that attention to whoever's directing that night. Yes, sir. Did I answer you?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Do we allow tiger liniment in Muay Thai?
I've never had a Muay Thai fighter come to the event that didn't stink like crazy, so I don't know. So, yeah, you do, because it absorbs, you know, and you can smell it when they walk in the door. You know, at my age, I use that stuff. No, I don't. I'm just playing, but just to get out of bed in the morning. But no, it is allowed, and you'll smell it as inspector and things like that. Tobacco products. Boy, it's becoming a huge deal. People wanting to dip backstage. You know, if any of that comes up, you need to bring that to the attention too. Anybody else? Well, I know I can speak for every official that referees. We really appreciate you guys, and we really appreciate our TDLR. I've traveled to a lot of states, and even though we might get upset at a few things, I'm telling you, we run a top ship in Texas. And usually if somebody's complaining, it's because of a rule that the state of Texas wrote. You know what I mean? It isn't our officials. You know, we're just abiding by those rules, and we're upholding those rules, and we're making sure people follow those rules. When people are upset, number one, they lost. And number two, it's because they wanted to get away with something that's in our rules that they can't. But I guarantee you can travel west of me, you can travel north of me, like I do frequently, and you will be blessed when you come back to Texas. You're very glad to be here. But I'm telling you guys, and me and Jacob talked long about this last night, we think we do have one of the strongest inspection groups. The sport's evolving. Please watch it. Unfortunately, my kids buy every pay-per-view, so it costs me a fortune. But you learn from that. And if you see something or hear something that went wrong, go watch it. That's what I do. If I hear of a referee that has made a bad call, I don't go dog him. I support him because I've done that, but I also go watch and see what he did, and you learn from that. And please communicate. You're never going to offend us, even if you say, hey, Kerry, I think you stopped this fight too early, or hey, you should have did this, or why didn't you do this? You're never, ever going to offend me, I promise, and you won't these guys either. We communicate, we talk, and that's how you learn. Any more questions? Everybody good? Yes, sir.
Would you consider MMA or boxing to be a referee role models?
You know, I've been asked that question a ton of times, and I couldn't stop. I'd be, you know, people go, Big John McCarthy, Herb Dean. You know, all those guys are excellent. I can't think of a bad one in the state of Texas, or I can't think of a bad one outside. I couldn't name that off the top of my head. But if I start doing that, I'm going to get all the way down the ladder. We're going to be here a long time. But those guys right there, they'll give you their phone number. They expect you to call them. You can call John McCarthy's gym any day, Mario Yamasaki. We have their cell numbers. We text all the time. And I'm doing that after every event. I've always text and say, hey, what do you think about this? Because something always happens that you're thinking, man, how would you handle that? But those are good ones to go to. And they're good classes. I know several of these guys have been there. Good? Well, thank you, guys.